maybe it's fine. Maybe I'm just a bit soft. What have I gotten myself into? I really wasn't sure whether this was the type of riding for me. The Toolkit is an absolute joke. Ran out of leg length on one side and I had to lay the bike over. Welcome back. I've done 1,000 Ks now on the KTM 390 Adventure R, and I thought that would be a good time to give you a little bit of a recap on how those 1,000 Ks have gone for me. I don't know if I'm going to call it a review. I'm not sure if 1,000 Ks is really enough to review a bike. That's not going to give us enough time to see any mechanical issues that might come up or longevity of the bike. So this is just the first 1,000 Ks that I've lived through, some things that I like about the bike so far, some things that I don't like about the bike so far, and I thought it would be good to share it with you. Look, it's no secret that KTM may have missed the mark with this bike when they released it to the market. You don't have to go very far online to find reviews about it saying that there's bad fuel mapping, the bike's stalling a lot of the time, side stand switches maybe being faulty or not really working that well. But this is my recap of 1,000 Ks as the bike sits here today. I haven't faced some of those things. Some of them I have, but I don't think they were entirely the fault of the bike. Oh, stalled it. I'm going to do this recap on my experience, what my thoughts are on the bike, and that's completely independent of anything to do with KTM. I'm not supported by KTM, however, I am a big fan of the brand. As we know, they're in a bit of financial strife, so I'm trying to do my part in keeping the brand alive, one 390 at a time. So let's get into it. My list of things I don't like about the bike is actually relatively short, but there's some things in that list that really bug me, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get myself past them. I'm going to start with the windshield. Now, when I went for the Adventure R, I specifically liked the look of the windshield. It gave me a bit of a flashback to a Dakar sort of rally style bike, and there's really not that much difference between this and the Enduro model. Fuel tank capacity and the windshield and maybe the TFT display is really the only differences. So I specifically went really for the Adventure for fuel tank and for the look of the windshield. I really liked it. However, on my very first ride on the bike on the open road, I was not sure whether this was the right decision. The windshield to me seemed like it didn't really do anything. The wind was in my face, in my helmet, blowing me around a little bit. You might have remembered on some earlier videos I was wearing my old motocross helmet at the time. So I changed my helmet to a more adventure style helmet thinking that that would fix it. It did somewhat, but the windshield still wasn't really doing what I thought it would do. I thought I'd be riding out on the open road and just have the breeze going straight over my head. Boy, how I was wrong. I'm new to adventure riding, I've said that before, so I was not sure, is this how adventure bikes are? Is this what riding on the open road is? What have I gotten myself into? I really wasn't sure whether this was the type of riding for me. I have spoken to a few people in the know, and we've even maybe thought about cutting the windshield down to let the air kind of hit me more in the chest rather than in the helmet. And I do find the windshield quite close to my chin when I'm up over the front of the bike. I'm finding, especially over some bumpy terrain, that the windshield's actually coming up and hitting me in the bottom of the helmet. Now, I do have a camera mounted on the front of my helmet, obviously, so sometimes it's hitting that, although I have had it hit the helmet without the camera on. So the jury's out for me on the windshield. Here I was thinking that this was the reason I wanted the bike, and I really like the look of it. I still do like the look of it. However, I'm not sure if that works for me with my height, with my riding style, with the roads I'm riding. Today on the way out here, I actually changed something, and I've been meaning to do this. I put earplugs in on the way out inside my helmet. So many of you probably already do that, and like I say, this riding's new to me, so I wasn't really sure if that was a thing. However, that changed the game massively. The wind is still getting me in the head, but now I started to think that maybe all this time it was really the noise that was getting to me more than actually the wind itself. Earplugs in, game changer. I'm going to ride with them all the time now. I don't have any audio in my helmet, no music or anything like that. So headphones has solved quite a bit of the problem. However, the height of the windshield is still a bit niggly for me, and we may look at cutting it down. Actually, comment down below if you've got the Enduro model or the Adventure model, How are you finding the windshield? Is it working for you? I would love to know whether the likes of the 690 Enduro, 701 Husqvarna with absolutely no windshield at all, the 390 Enduro, are you guys getting it, the wind in your face and your chest, and it's unbearable? I mean, I see plenty of those bikes around, so maybe it's fine. Maybe I'm just a bit soft and not really used to riding out on the open road just yet. Ergonomically, the bike actually fits me pretty well. I have moved the handlebars all the way forward. There's 3 settings here, plus the clamp is offset, so I've pushed that out as far as it can go. I've removed the rubber bumpers and the foot pegs. The seat to foot peg height is maybe a little bit short. The seat height is fine. In fact, sometimes for me it's almost too tall. I'm 6'1", 6'2". It's not too tall in the sense that I can't put my feet down when I need to. I've got a bad hip, it's got plenty of metalwork in it, and I can't actually get my leg over the bike very easily. And it's certainly become harder since I've put the 10-litre pack on the back. So I need to get used to getting on this thing in a different way to help my hip out. But all in all, the Rider Triangle suits me pretty well. Now the side stand, I haven't had any issues with the switch not working or it dropping down while I've been riding. However, I do find it hard sometimes to actually flick it up. Now bikes I've had in the past have had a little hook or an extra little piece here on the side stand to be able to sort of get your foot in front of it and get it out of the way. This doesn't have that. I find my boot constantly slipping off the side stand trying to get it up. It does lean over quite a way. You'll notice here I've got a stone under it to make the bike sit a little bit more upright. So the side stand switch has been fine for me, but I just find it a little bit niggly to get it out of the way. Sometimes I miss it and the bike won't start because it's actually still down, but in my head I've got it out of the way. So I don't know, a little hook here or something like that might have helped just to get the stand up and out. And like every side stand, the foot on it is tiny. It always goes into the dirt. I am actually going to get something to help with that. One thing I am impressed with on the KTM 390 is the front brake. Now it's quite a large disc, I think, you know, for the size of the bike. And the ABS is on all the time on the front. It's not something that you can switch off, even in off-road mode. I'm quite impressed with the front brake. It's really, it does pull the bike up quite quickly. Whoa, okay. The lever modulation feels pretty good, I think. I don't know what brand it is. It's a no-name, not sure. But I think it's actually quite a good brake. Now the rear, I have the ABS off in off-road mode. I certainly can't ride with it at all off-road with the ABS on. So I think the front brake does a pretty good job. Now you may have seen some early pictures of the bike. It actually had a rotor guard here. I'm a big fan of those. Coming from motocross, I've always had the rotor guards on my bikes. So watch this space, we may have one of those coming. It's a KTM power part due to be released soon. So yeah, front brake, that's a tick from me. Now a bike in this price bracket can't do everything, but one thing it doesn't do very well is protect the bottom of the engine. This Sump Guard down here, it's pretty thin and I wouldn't want to rely on it you know, to hit anything really hard. The bike does have good ground clearance, so although I hear the bash guard or the Sump Guard hitting a lot of stones, I think they're really just flicking off the front tyre. I haven't hit anything solid yet with the Sump Guard and I hope not to. I have actually got something coming that will solve that problem. So once that's on, we might do a review of that product. But you know, like I say, you can't do everything with a bike at this price point. Sump guards on most bikes are, you know, generally lightweight. They certainly try to reduce costs there. One thing that does look really, really good is the Norden 901 Husqvarna Expedition Sump Guard. Now that out of the factory looks like a Sump Guard that does the job. So look, this one here, it's coming off soon. It's done its job so far. But you know, don't go into something relying on that Sump Guard to protect the motor, because it may well not. One little thing that surprised me the other day was the indicators. I actually dropped the bike. I ran out of leg length on one side and I had to lay the bike over, and I didn't even think at the time that I was laying it down on the indicator. I went to pick the bike up and the indicator had actually bent. I thought I'd broken it. I didn't even think. These are actually really, really flexible. So the indicator was actually sticking right around here. I just bent it back into its place and it seems fine. So not that I would want to really put the weight of the bike back down on the indicator again, but it seemed to survive really well. Now, one little gripe I have is under seat storage or lack of. I wasn't expecting a big luggage compartment, but it would have been nice just to have a little pocket there to put some essentials in. They've given us a toolkit, which is a fantastic toolkit. The toolkit is an absolute joke. I have no idea what I'm even supposed to do with it. It comes with some silly little rubber bands and a few little tools that look like they were made in the 1980s. KTM have given us about as much free storage space as you get on a Jetstar flight. Look, there's not enough room in there to package it and get any more storage out of it, and now I've got a 10-litre bag on the back with all the essentials. However, yeah, just something in there might have been nice just to put a few things in. One thing I've found pretty easy to navigate is the screen and the display. The control switch here to cycle through the menus on the screen is relatively easy to use. I've set up the favorites menu with some things that I like to see when I'm riding, water temperature, that kind of thing. I have noticed that when you are changing ride modes while you're riding, going from street to off-road, you do need to just quickly close the throttle as you select that ride mode. It took me a little bit to figure that out. You can do it while you're riding, you just need to shut the throttle off and quickly select off-road, and then away it goes. So, obviously I may look at getting a GPS unit to mount here up above the display, but it's nice and clear, it's nice and bright, it's easy to navigate with the switches, so, I think that's a relatively good thing. One thing that's been talked about a lot is the suspension on this bike. Now, I'm not going to go into it, I've discussed it already, and you'll find many things online about the suspension. KTM have now come out with a new rear shock, a WP shock. So, look, depending on the price point of that, we may look at going down that path. However, I like to always refer back to the price that you pay at the dealership for the bike represents the level that it's at. And, some might argue that it is a bit pricier than the likes of Royal Enfield and CF Moto. However, in that price bracket, you're never going to get anything that has, the works suspension. So at the moment, we're living with it, we're dealing with it. It's not the worst thing in the world. If you know how it reacts, you can adjust your riding style to suit. However, for the sort of riding that I'm now getting more into, the rear shock is starting to not let me down, but become more of a factor. I've got some, Krieger bags coming for the sides here, 12-litre bags. So we're going to start loading this thing up with more luggage. I do have a couple of clicks left on the preload in the rear. I haven't gone all the way on that yet, knowing that I had some luggage coming. It does the job okay. I think it's a little bit more probably weaker in the rear end than the front, so not quite balanced. Like I say, if you know what to expect, you can adjust your riding style slightly to suit. Now, I do think the radiator is a little bit exposed. You'll see here I've got some gorse stuck inside it. I quite often come home with all sorts of things stuck inside this radiator shroud. I think it gives it good protection, but there's just some edges here that always seem to catch branches and sticks and that kind of thing. I have got a better guard coming for the radiator. This one doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence for some of the trips that I've got coming up, so that is going to be replaced. But I think if you're out riding in single track and trails and out in the woods, just be mindful that this radiator guard, is quite vulnerable. And you may end up hooking things in, like these little sharp edges here are prone to getting sticks and branches wrapped around them. So, it might do the job for most people, but for the direction that we're heading with this bike, that is going to come off. And also the horn here is quite vulnerable. We're going to move that over and put a bit of a guard over it. We'll touch on that in another video, but I do like the shrouds. They're nice and big, they look really cool, but yeah, again, just a little bit vulnerable. Well, look, that about wraps up my laundry list of things on the bike that I'm happy with and not so happy with. They might align with some things that you aren't happy with either. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Comment below if there's some things in there that you resonate with, or maybe some things that I overlooked. Again, like I say, 1,000 Ks in, I don't know if it's really enough time yet to give the bike a full review. We may come back again at the 5,000 K mark, and hopefully it's still in one piece. Some of these things I'm working on fixing. I've got some more parts coming, and we'll touch on that in another video, maybe a full breakdown of where I've got the bike to at that time. So far so good really with the KTM 390 Adventure R. I've come from a KTM 300SX two-stroke motocross bike, so it's very different in a lot of ways, but it has some similarities. I'm impressed. This type of riding is really something that I'm enjoying. I don't know yet whether this bike is a stepping stone to other bikes. I do like the look of the 690 Enduro or the 890 Adventure. But at the moment this bike is treating me well, it's doing its job, it does everything I ask of it so far. We've got some camping trips coming up, so we are going to load the bike up with a bit of luggage, and then it might be interesting to see how that low end power, or maybe lack of low end power, goes with a bit of luggage strapped on the back and a few beers. Look, thanks for watching. This has been Backroad Theory. I hope to see you again. Thank you very much.